This should go pretty quick. We're just going to set up tests for the server we wrote yesterday. All right, just to take a look at that again, we had our bear model, right? Our bear routes, and our server.js. Which is basically just mounting the bear routes into this thing, setting up some error middleware for us to work with. So we're just going to install Jest, right, which will be a save dev because it's a testing framework, so anything that's related to testing is going to be a development dependency and not a dependency. That takes a while to install. Fun. It's one of the things actually that I really like about Mocha Chai, using Mocha Chai or Mocha and Expect, is that they're really lightweight. Jest is gigantic. Wow.
Those things like I get warnings. So much stuff is on there.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about like a lot of the warning, right? Like especially things where they're telling you about skipping optional dependency. Most likely you'll never need that ever, and you'll know if you need it. Yeah.
During this, do we also go over course middleware a little bit? Just
Yeah.
video, and I don't really know how middleware is.
You just have to do the access control allow all, basically. Access control allow origin, and do a star in it. Yep. Is that video not on there? Yeah, for the course.
It's real quick, man. it's real quick on the course.
Yeah, there's not much to cores, right? It's just like all you do is that what is it, accept or something? I can't remember the thing that you call on res, but it's really as simple as it is in the video. Like you just have to do access control allow origin star, and that's kind of all you have to do. It's one, it's a practical thing that you will have to work with. Like you will have to do some core stuff, but it's really just getting you to write more pieces of middleware that are actually useful, right? So don't put too much thought into the core's middleware because it's really as simple as it seems.
I thought like maybe we wanted to test it out with Roku. No.
Nope. No, you don't even have to confirm it's working. Just really all you have to do is that access control allow origin star. Yeah, and that's it. All right, so we'll create a server.test.js. Actually, we'll call it bears.test.js. This is really going to be an integration test, right? Because we don't want to spend a lot of time testing MongoDB or testing how the Express router works. Really, the only thing we want to test is that our API works the way we expect it to. So we're just going to keep this super simple. Okay, so there's before all. In here, actually let's do const server equals require. Right, we're just going to grab that server, and there's two things we have to do in the before all. One is start our server. The other is we want to set that database URL, right, to a different URL than our development database, just so we're not running our tests on either production. Well, we shouldn't be running our tests on production anyway, but so that we're not running our tests on our development version of our code, right, because it will be like adding and deleting things out of the database. What was that? Yeah, we're just using a different database. We're just using a test database as opposed to, like, in general, we didn't really talk about this, but you kind of have like 3 different databases that you'll connect to, right? One is development, which is your development database, right? One is test and one is production. So just splitting it up into those 3 different pieces makes it a little bit easier to work with data and not have to worry about deleting something that you don't mean to delete. Let me just double check what I named that variable. Process.env.db URL. So we're just going to set that in here. All right, so I'm just going to name this bears test. And then I'm going to do a server.listen on 3000. I'm actually going to do that on 5000 just so we have it on a different port, because I, a lot of the time, will not close down my server before trying to run my tests, and this would actually get an error in that case, right? So we're going to be making our request to 5000 as opposed to 3000 so we don't mess it up with our dev version. All right, now I got to remember how to do jest tests. Where did I have that open? What was that?
When I posted at the, oh,
Yeah, okay, it is exactly like I thought it was. The other thing we need to grab is super agent, which I almost forgot about. And I usually pull this in as request, right? It's just it's kind of the convention that gets used when you pull super agent into your testing framework. You just call it request. And I typed request equals request, which is not what I wanted. All right. Test. It should create a bear. So we are just going to request localhost 5000 / API / v1 / bears. No, actually that should go in a dot post.
What is the difference between test and it?
One's used with jest, one's used with Mocha.
Okay, so if I call, even if I have just loaded, if I call it, that's going to run through.
So I'm pretty sure you have to use test and jest.
You do, because if you have them both, you to run both of them. Then I was like, why am I getting different shit? So you it's either it or test. You have them both to run either one.
So the short answer is there isn't really a difference.
Okay.
And I'm just going to create a bear with a name of test. Oh, I need an expect library. Actually, do you need an expect library? No, just has one. Yeah, cool. Things I forget. Expect error. And I think it is, yeah, it is the expect to be null. Right. And we are going to expect res to be. I'm actually going to grab individual pieces of this. So I'm not going to check the date just because I don't. Well, actually, let's set birthday. We'll create a date object just so we can test this part too. Nah, I'm not going to bother. I changed my mind again. So name's going to be test. And we will look for, what's the other thing we have? Favorite food. Salmons. Yep. Nah, changing my mind again, we will test for a birthday. This is going to be hard to test. What I really want to do is test that it defaults to time.now. But nah, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to bother. I coded in a thing yesterday that's incredibly hard to test. Basically, if you want to test a default date or a created at, what you have to do is you have to get a time.now basically when you send the request out, and then check that it's within a range of a couple of seconds, right? Is usually the easiest way to do it, but it's still kind of a pain in the ass. So I would recommend just not testing it. Oh, and we want expect res.id to be not null. Or to, is that how the jest expects work? Right, I basically want to check that ID exists, right? I'm not going to try, once again, I'm not going to try, actually I'll do that with birth date too. Not period to be. All right. So we'll go into package JSON and set our test to jest. All right, as we've done in other places. So now we should be able to just run npm test, and it will just test our tests. Ooh, that's slow. That's real slow. I forgot to start my MongoDB server. You can basically, you can make, David was asking this question, there's some ways that you can try to get like npm or a script to run MongoDB. They're not very reliable and are usually more trouble than it's worth. So you kind of just have to start your MongoD on a separate thing. Minus db path. Yeah, that should be right. Why is that giving me? Huh. Oh, it's db path, one word. Can you tell I'm tired today? One failed, double callback bug. Super agent request was sent twice because both end and then were called. Never call .end if you're using promises. Okay. Cool. They did add a .then to super agent. That didn't used to exist, so that's kind of cool. Get rid of that statement. Now this is just res. Two different values. Expected string, but received undefined. Expected value to be, is it res.body? Let's do this. Let's see if we can go into debugger in Jest. I'm not sure if Jest actually supports debugger, but we'll find out. Ugh. And of course it's like 20 stupid files. Yeah, bin. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to run Jest from here. We'll run it in debug. We'll see if that happens. It does not. It does not let us debug. Let's see if we do another one, if that'll let us do it. Okay. But it doesn't actually run in debugger. Huh. Okay, we're getting a duplicate key error. Here's what we're going to do. So we want to make sure that our database is completely empty when we start off, right? So what we're going to do here is just a mongoose. let's do it this way. We'll actually grab that bear object. Const bear equals require dot slash. No, I should only need one. So we'll grab that bear object, and from this before all, the before alls should work just like the tests where you can return a promise and it'll do the stuff for you, right? It'll let you do asynchronous things. So we're just going to go bear dot remove and pass it an empty object so that it will remove every bear in our database. This is like a good thing to do in a before all, right? So you start with a clean slate before you start actually running your tests. That way, if your tests like fail halfway through, like if they fail halfway through, they won't always call an after all, right? So what we want to do is do it in a before all so that it's always going to run. Also, something I noticed is that our tests aren't exiting, and that's because we have the server running. So I'm going to do an after all. Right? If you notice that when you run your tests, it doesn't go back to the command line after your tests have run, the most likely culprit is your server is still listening and you haven't closed out the server. So just a thing to keep in mind. I believe it's server.close. We'll find out if that's actually right.
It does not work.
What was that?
I had to start the server at the top of the file and then just server.close in the after. It would work like that. But doing the server.listen before wouldn't work for me.
That's interesting. That seems like a bug in jest, to be honest.
I was thinking Mocha, so it might
Mine was still running after
Huh.
my mother closed it out.
Yeah, that's not closing anyway. That's weird. Huh. I'm going to console.log res in here because I want to see what's in it. Oh yeah, so it should be on body. Right, it's giving us back the entire request as opposed to just the body. And instead of, yeah, I always forget that Super Agent does that. Instead of rewriting everything in here, I'm just going to do this. Just reassign that. All right, now let's see if this goes. Okay, cool. So we got one passing. So I tend to like to write tests so that they can be run in a random order. But when I'm doing integration tests like this, that becomes like not very practical. It ends up being more of a pain in the ass than it's really worth. So I'm just going to expect this to be in this order. Actually, we'll do something a little bit different. Test. It should get an array of pairs. I'm going to make it so it won't actually matter what order this runs in. Actually, just going to do this as and all we're going to expect in here is just res.body. Actually, let's do an array as array. Since array isn't actually a type, there's kind of two different ways you can check to see if something's an array. You can just check if it has a length property, and you can also do array is array. You could also do instance of capital A array. All those ways kind of work. I tend to do array is array. Right, you can't just do type of the thing to be an array, because array is not actually a type in JavaScript. I'm just going to see if it's an array. Right, just making sure we make that request back, get an array. Those are things that should happen. Not found. Okay. Oh, I forgot the v1. Yeah, so now we're getting 2 passed. Next, we should do, it should get a single bear. What we're going to do for this one is create a bear. Right, we'll have a name equal to test2 or test, let's call it test single get. Then inside of a dot then, we will make our request. Right, so from this then, we're going to return our request with a dot get. I actually need the data here from because I need the ID, right? So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm creating a new bear. I need to call dot save, which is the part I'm missing. I'm doing it inline without actually saving it to a any kind of variable, right? Which is why it's wrapped in that extra set of parentheses. So I can call that constructor function and then call save on the result without actually saving it into a variable. And really what I want to get out of this is the ID so that I can do a get to localhost. Does that make sense, what I'm doing here? This part of the test? Right, I'm creating a new bear, I'm saving it, and then I'm making a request to that bear's ID. Right?
And it just knows that that's the bear that you're targeting, I guess? Because you're saving it to our testing database.
Yep. So that's why I have to have this dot then coming off of that bear.save so that I can actually get the bear._ID, right? Because we wrote a route to be able to get a single.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Except I concatenated it wrongly. Now it's correct.
And then that lowercase bear, where's that? Where you put that?
Right up here.
Okay.
Right, from the promise that's returned by the dot save. Yep. So we do expect res.body.name to be test single bear. Right, and that should be good. Right. Ugh. Damn it. And now we should see 3 passed. There we go.
You can use the concat or template literal, it wouldn't matter.
Yep, either way's fine. I've written concats for so long that like I tend to default to concatenation rather than template strings, unless I'm like actively making a point of using a template string. So you'll see me use concatenation a lot, and that's just habit because I've done that forever. And ECMAScript 6 is pretty new, so.
These, I can't remember, these types of tests, are these, is it acceptance tests?
Acceptance test or integration test.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll hear both terms. They basically mean you're testing the sort of API as a whole, right? Like the app as a whole, rather than unit testing some small piece of it. Yeah. Yeah, you'll hear either acceptance test or unit test or integration test.
The readme doesn't specify, are we?
Pick one. Whatever makes sense. For APIs, it really makes a lot more sense to do like acceptance testing, right? Because we don't want to spend time like testing that MongoDB is working the right way, right?
Right.
We assume that MongoDB is working. We assume that the Express router is working and that Express is working. What we want to make sure is that our routes do the things that we expect them to. So something like an integration test is a little bit more applicable here. If we were writing our own libraries in here, we would also want to unit test those libraries, right? Like if we wrote our own parser function for body parser, right? That would be a situation that we would want to make sure that we are not only doing integration testing for our app as a whole, but also doing unit testing for that piece, right?
Yeah.
The kind of way I think about it is anything that goes in lib, right, is something that you want to unit test. Otherwise, you can just totally do acceptance testing.
Well, it seems like for their routes themselves.
Yeah, at that point, though, you're just testing the Express router, right?
Well, no, I mean the code that we wrote.
Yeah.
For like just testing, like does my like if I if I give an ID, does it give me back a thing regardless of like. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and like we in the HTTP, right, in the vanilla HTTP, vanilla node HTTP servers, you were writing your own routers for that. So that was why you wanted to probably wanted to unit test those routers so that make sure that those routers are working properly. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of different thought process on what's better between. A lot of people have very strong opinions on whether you should unit test or integration test.
Okay.
The real answer is you should do both, depending on what it is that what kind of code you've written. Yeah.
You just show right at the top how you put mongoose into there. Like just use bring there and it should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because in server, right, we're setting those things up.
Okay.
Yep. Ooh, this might actually be not on Bear's test. Because I want to do that. I want to because the server, when we run server, that's when it's connecting to MongoDB, not when we actually do a server.listen, right? So I want to make sure that this DB URL is set before we actually run that server. I bet if I actually open up a Mongo console, show DBS. Yeah, we've just been modifying bears so far. So right now, if I do use DBS and then db.bears.find, there's nothing in it because we were deleting everything out of that database every single time we ran this. Great, nailed it. This is a good example of why you should use a separate database for testing, because you'll end up accidentally deleting everything out of your local running dev machine. So, yay, nailed it. Killing it today. Cool. Yeah.
Watch the video, Tyler.
Yeah, that never happened. Okay. Test. It should update with a post. All right, so we'll do the same thing. All right, we'll create a new bear with a name. Testing a. Oh, that should be a put. Testing a put. Save that. .then. Grab the bear. Return a request with a .put where we are going to set to localhost 5000/API/v1/bears, and we'll .send it a name of new name. And since these thens actually now work the way that they you would expect them to, I believe we can now take a look at expect res. Oh no, because we're just expecting res.text 2B. Success. And I think I had an exclamation point on there. Let's see what we get for that. Unhandled rejection, not found. You don't need them for single argument arrow functions. You don't need the parents. It's only on single arguments. Even if it's no arguments, you need the parents. But with single arguments, you don't need it. Oh, the part I forgot. The bear dot underscore ID. And that's why I'm getting the errors there. Cool. So now we have update with a put. I'm just going to copy this for update with a patch. Because they're basically the same code, right? And then I'm just going to change the word put to patch. We'll call this one patch new name. Right. So total when I run these tests, how many bears am I creating in the database? I mean, I'm deleting them when the database starts, right? As soon as we start running our tests, I'm deleting all the bears in the database. But how many bears am I creating so far? Yeah, 5, right? The only one, I'm creating a bear here for the post, right? I'm not creating one for the get all. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will be creating a 5th for the delete, right? It should be able to murder a bear. Did I return off of these? I didn't. Oh, actually, that's not where I want to return. I do want to return in here. I think. Jest is still pretty new to me. Not sure if I want to. It's probably dust in the projector, to be honest. Oh, actually, I do want to return here too. I want to return in both places. Ugh. Okay, so another new bear. Name about to be murdered. Gonna murder this bear. Oh, sorry, I'll put this in the middle of the screen. Dot delete to localhost 5000/API/v1/bears plus bear dot underscore ID and a dot then where we get back that response, and we'll just expect again res dot text. Actually, I think we sent back bear successfully murdered. Watch, there's going to be an exclamation point at the end that I forgot about. Not found. Okay. Oh, I forgot the slash. Yeah, you got to remember those trailing slashes if you're doing string concatenation. I forget them all the time. Cool. So we can create bears. We can our get all gets an array of bears. We're not necessarily checking that there's bears in there, right? If you remember, we're just checking for type of array. That's the usual test I do for the get all. Just because it's really hard to keep that like exact. It's sort of a pain in the ass to keep the exact order and the exact things. It's just I don't think it's worth it. So I just do a test for an array. We can get a single bear, we can update with a put, we can update with a patch, and we can murder a bear. And that's all there is to testing your APIs. Really, you should just do sort of this integration test style. It's the easiest way, and you get kind of the most reassurance for that amount of effort, right? We could unit test this, but it would be a huge pain in the ass, and it's probably not worth it. We'd be mostly testing Express and MongoDB, right? Yeah, question?
Can you show again, because it does seem really important to target, I guess, make a different database for testing. Can you
Yeah.
show where you,
Yeah, so up here I set process.env.db URL to localhost 27017 to bears test instead of just bears, right? And then in my server.js, when I'm connecting with Mongoose, I'm either connecting to process.env.db URL or this default with bears, right? If I look at Mongo, let's just double check this. Show DBS, we should have a bears test now, as opposed to before when I messed it up and we were just doing everything in bears. So the important thing to remember is that the connect happens as soon as we require in this server file, right? This is the thing that I forgot. So I have to set that DB URL before I require in server. Right.
And that's not creating that directory, is it? In your testing file, you already created that directory, bears test?
No, so that's the actual database name, right? So that's actually a MongoDB thing when I do a show DBS. Yeah, right up here. Yeah, so anything that comes after that slash after the 27017, that string becomes the name of your database. Yep.
Would it be more, or I'm not sure how how this actually all looks when it's deployed, but for in the server right now you have the default go to bears, where it makes more sense for default to go to test. Write that just to be safer, or would that cause problems?
Probably better is to call this bears dev.
Okay.
And then like your production would be on DB URL, right? It'll actually probably be Mongo Lab URL, but we can alias it when we get to that point. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Your default should be your dev system, not your test system. Your test should be set up differently. In an ideal world, if you mess up your dev data, it shouldn't matter, right? It should only be your production that matters. But that's not usually how we write code. Usually there will be some unretrievable data in your dev, and you don't want to delete it. So. Although you should create something that enters that data into the database, like a script that does it rather than... Anyway, we'll get to that at some point when we talk about deployment concerns. Other questions?
How do you get the suggest you just stop the server straight away?
No, I'm control C-ing out of it. Yep. Yeah, it is. Oh, I know what the other piece of it is. It's Mongoose is also connected. That's what it is. So let's go back to that test. Let me see how Mongoose close connection.
So bear.move just completely clears the database?
It doesn't completely clear the database. It just deletes all the bears in the database. Well, okay, let's see. Mongoose.connection.close. Okay, cool. So we need to do two pieces to this. This is why it's not closing, even though I'm doing a server close. And this is a good thing to show you. So you can actually get a hold of the raw connection, like we worked with the MongoDB native driver, through mongoose.connection, right? That'll give you the actual connection to your database. So what we can do is a mongoose.connection.close and a server.close, and this should hopefully drop us back out to the command line. Let's try it. Nope. Never mind, I got no idea.
I was gonna ask it because I was doing mine on lab 11 and we closed out and I don't have mongoose on that.
Yep. I'd have to do some more research into Jest to figure it out. Maybe John has a way of making that happen. Yeah, it's still running. It might also just be the default that it'll just rerun the tests as you edit things. Let's try that. I'm just going to put a string in here. Here is a random string. It might just be rerunning the test for me, because that's a thing some test suite do. Nope, it's not doing that. Okay. I don't know. I'll figure it out and get back to you on how to get that to close. I'm not going to spend a lot of time messing with things. Usually it's like a process of closing all the threads you have open, right? All the connections that you have open to other services. In this case, closing the server and closing Mongoose, the Mongoose connection. But that is apparently not working. So I'll figure that out.
This week is on lab 11. I did the exact same thing and it worked flawlessly.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. But I'll
One of the we're using the middleware like Next. Next, that be a thing. Just waiting on a Next and then not doing anything.
No, that's unlikely. I don't know. I'll look into it. Yeah, something's keeping that process open, and my guess is it's either Mongoose or the server. Somehow one of those things isn't actually being closed. But I'll look into it. Other questions? Pretty straightforward for testing, right? Yeah, you just make requests back to those same APIs. That's all you have to do for your lab. All right, cool.